so there's really no excuse not to listen to the Neil Archer Show. Well, chaps, well, back in, I think it was the spring of about 2021, I obtained death figures from the Office for National Statistics and was able to prove that the pandemic was in fact a lie. I had death figures for 30 years and was able to calculate that the average deaths per year were far higher in the, I think it was the 90s, somewhere around there, when there was no COVID, than in the years when there was COVID. What came out of those figures was that basically we were being told that every single person the figures they gave for COVID deaths was virtually every single person who had died in that year, because the total deaths weren't above the average. In fact, it was actually slightly lower than the average. So there couldn't possibly have been a pandemic. And then, of course, we get the jab comes along and people start dropping like flies. Now, I've been talking to people about this for that number of, whatever that is, 4 years, 5 years, and people are still not sufficiently well informed to know that they've been conned and that this is a mass murder situation. Now, there is a man who is called, an unfortunate name, I'm afraid. People might laugh. His name is John O'Looney, but he's a great guy. And he is a funeral director. And he was one of the first people to whistleblow on the number of deaths that were occurring from the jab. Plus, he in the embalming process, he was finding these massive, long, not clots of some kind. They weren't blood clots. They were he said they're like calamari, and they virtually 80% at least blocked people's veins and arteries. Now he's done an interview over the last couple of days. And I will put a link to it down in the description, and I would suggest that everybody who watches this video goes and sees his video. It's an hour long, but he's a good talker. He's quite, he's informative, and he talks well. The first half an hour is kind of his background, showing you his experience, and you could skip that and just watch the second, if you short of time, just watch the second half hour, because in the second half hour he goes through the what happened from his point of view as a funeral director during and after COVID itself, or the myth of COVID, and the effects of the jab. It's absolutely it's a fascinating watch, even if you're relatively familiar with the facts, as I was. I've been following this chat. I've seen him interviewed several times, or several videos of him being interviewed in the past. So I had a fairly good idea of what he was going to say, but it's still fantastic. And what, in terms of the information that he gives you and the insight that he gives you into what's been going on. Now, the other thing that I want to say today is that I say every time I talk about COVID, I say that we must never forget and never forgive. And the people who were involved in this country, like Nick Hancock, Boris Johnson, probably Starmer, all these people must be held accountable, because this is it's mass murder on a scale probably that's never ever happened before. Certainly not in recorded history. I mean, I'm a great believer that there were civilizations before ours. The world is so old that I can't think that could possibly not be the case. I mean, it's a little bit like saying we can't be alone in the universe. You know, the statistics are on the side of something. There were civilizations before ours, so I can't vouch for those, but certainly in recorded history, there's never been anything like it, and the things like the Holocaust, in a sense, pale into comparison, because we're talking about something absolutely worldwide, and the death figures are probably going to run in, by the time it runs its course, are going to run into millions. Turbo cancer, heart disease, all these things that have been caused by this jab, and the people who are responsible must be prosecuted, and in my opinion they must be executed. Anyway, that's it for today. I will put the link to that video down below, and please, if you do no more than watch the second half of it at the very minimum. The whole thing is extremely interesting, but the second half is the bit that is about the COVID. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Well done if you got this far, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers for now.